Hey everyone, it's Alan Shimel, DevOps.com, DevOps TV, here at the DevOps Enterprise Summit UK 2018. That was a lot of DevOps right there. We have a great panel here as we wrap up our first day one of DevOps Enterprise Summit UK. And let me introduce you, starting from my far right, we have Nicole Bryan. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you.
And sitting next to Nicole is the famous Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Carmen DeArdo of DeArdo LLC.
I'm a Houston Astros fan.
Houston Astros on the right, okay. So,
thank you, Alan.
You're welcome. Dominica, would you like to start off with your favorite team?
Well, I was going for, it's all about soccer right now. Football
Yes, it is.
in the UK.
As they call it.
Yeah. So I was rooting for Belgium, but now I'm considering Mexico.
Really?
Yeah.
Very good. Following Landon Donovan's advice. To say if the U.S. isn't in it, we should root for Mexico.
Ah, yes.
But I'm rooting for England. I'd love to see England win, but we digress. And then, so anyway, Dominica DeGrandis, author, DevOps, Kanban expert, Tasktop. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then to my immediate right it's Dr.
Yep, I can write prescriptions after this if you'd like.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. It's been a long day. Dr. Mick, welcome.
Thank you, Alan.
CEO, founder of Tasktop. So, guys, as we spoke a little bit about off camera, what we wanted to talk about today was overarching big theme we want to hit on is this idea of value stream teams, right? And we've spoken in some of our earlier interviews around, what is the concept of value stream, what is value stream mapping, etc. Nicole, you introduced a very interesting term to the conversation, a value stream architect. Why don't we run from there and then work backwards to Mick's conclusion about whether there is such a thing as a value stream team. Go.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been learning as we're watching organizations trying to move into this value stream thinking is it feels like there's something missing as they're trying to craft their value streams. And what we're seeing is that there's this missing role of a value stream architect. And really what we see it is that kind of liaison, that tie between the people that understand the business and how your value stream should look from a business perspective, but someone who can marry that to the realities of the activities that are actually happening in your value stream. So it's really just a new role that we foresee a lot of organizations having a need for.
Excellent. So is it a full-time permanent role to be the value stream architect, or is that more of a consulting gig?
I don't think we know yet, and I could see it falling into both. I think at the beginning, it's a very, very full-time job, and in fact, we've been working with some customers to try and figure out even how one approaches defining your products with this value stream architect, and that person being sort of responsible for getting the right people in the room, because that's actually harder than you might think in order to figure out how to craft the team. So I don't think we know. If it's going to end up being a permanent full-time role or more of a consultative role. I guess if I had to put money on it right now, I'd say it would end up being a full-time role eventually.
To me, and guys, feel free to jump in, but it feels almost, my background's in security, cybersecurity. When the CISO role first started becoming semi-popular, what it really became is they would call people in to architect out kind of your security strategy and your defense in depth. But then once it was sort of implemented, laid out, you bought the products, you hired the team, all of a sudden the CISO's role where he was let's call him a thinker up here, an architect, whatever it became very hands-on in the weeds. Okay, now you did all that, go manage our SIM. Our security event information manager, or go keep an eye on the stream coming out of our IDS. And that's not a CISO's role.
So I think, from my perspective, right, if you look at a value stream, and nobody's really responsible, or has been up till now, in the acceleration or the speed or the flow. right? We know intuitively or theoretically, we know we have bottlenecks. But if you go up to somebody and say, where's your bottleneck from the time you think the customer thinks about something until they get feedback, they're guessing. I mean, I'm not saying everybody, but if you're in a large company, you're probably guessing because you don't really understand or have the data, the visibility to where that flow is, and it's nobody's job, right? So it's not architecting, okay, yes, I want this tool to be architected and talk to this tool, but this is above that, right? How are you going to architect everything going into this value stream to get flow, and then it's really never going to end because you're always going to have a bottleneck. You're always going to have data. You're going to go through, the PDCA. So, it may ebb and flow to a degree. You may get your value stream under control, from that perspective.
For that moment.
But I think sometimes we think we're done and walk away when really it's kind of like Churchill, right? We're not at the end. We're not at the we're not at the end. We're not even at the beginning of the end. We may be at the end of the beginning.
Carmen, it sounds to me more like you're saying you can never dip your toe into the same value stream twice.
That's a Zeno, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's why you're Dr. Nick. You got that one.
I think I need the drugs now.
Yeah. No, but I mean, so in other words, it's an ongoing, ever-changing sort of flow of current that you may, put your thumb on for a split second or a moment in time.
Right.
But as soon as you take your thumb off, it changes, it morphs, it evolves. Mm-hmm. And so, given that, then you would need a full-time, permanent kind of person because this is a constant.
Well, I'll give you an example. Just at Task Top, as we were defining our value stream for one of our products, it took 6 months of our lead developer and our product manager spending many hours per week to try and actually define the value stream and get it all sorted through and then begin to see, okay, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. And I was like, okay, fabulous as that is, that's not really what I want you spending your time doing, right? So it's indicative of this need for another role.
So, and where that ended up, by the way, is because this became so important to us in the process that it's now one of our co-founders, Robert Elves, who's responsible for the value streams.
Yep.
So is he a value stream architect?
He is ours right now.
Yeah.
We should probably let him know.
And it takes new title. And it takes a lot of time, and to your point, a lot of care, love, and feeding. It is not a stagnant. It's not like you do it once and you're done, because you start to figure out where the bottlenecks are, and then you're like, well, now we got to change things, and so
it's a never-ending whack-a-mole game at some point. But and so let me bring this back now to making something you said earlier before we went on air, which was you don't believe there's a single value stream team.
Well, it depends, where you put the enunciation on that phrase, because there should be a team responsible for the value stream, but the question is, value streams deliver value, right? And when you're delivering value in any kind of lean methodology, it's really about what the customer's pulling, which is why I think we're putting so much emphasis, and I think we're hearing more of at this conference, on value streams, basically delivering value to the market in a product-oriented way, because projects obviously can't ever be properly aligned to what customers want. Customers want more features, more quality, better products. And so in the end, the customer, they just don't care, whether you've got 1 or 18 feature teams on this product, right? They just want to pull those features. They want to pull that value. So in terms of delivering value, we've definitely seen in some of our customers trying to make this simplified one-to-one mapping between their feature teams, which are a great construct that a lot of organizations are successful with, and assume that this one cross-functional feature team can deliver everything for a value stream. But what we're noticing is that the products are actually, they just tend to be more complex than that. So you end up with multiple teams serving a typical value stream, an enterprise value stream, even a B2C value stream as well. So in that sense, I think, again, the customers don't care. You need to put everything you need to support that product onto the value stream. And then the organization will end up, if you've got multiple products, you'll end up with multiple value streams. And then we do need that role to basically nurture and feed and optimize all those value streams. And I think it's actually just completely insane that we don't have this in companies today. When you think about car manufacturers, for example, the plant operations manager at a company like a BMW, those people are responsible for making sure that the business value is being delivered for BMW. It's the most important thing, is to deliver those cars that deliver you the sheer driving pleasure, and make sure that the bottlenecks are known, and make sure that if there's more demand for an electric car, the plant can actually scale up to that, and so on. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that we put Robert Elves in charge of our value stream, or that a good number of BMW CEOs were former plant managers. Because these are the people that understand the connection between producing value to your customers through products and the business, and how the business runs. So I think, and like you said, the value streams change, they're complicated, we'll have millions of lines of code, many tools and applications, and I think we have to start taking the ownership of this role really seriously to have any kind of consistency or effectiveness at scale. So.
Understood. Domenico, you're way, we haven't heard from you, and you're way too smart not to contribute here. What do you think?
I think that teams rarely work in isolation, and that dependencies are one of the biggest issues that teams are dealing with, especially across a value stream. And so, I talk a lot about flow and going from looking at queues instead of traditional project management plans, and project managers will get a little bit worried and say, well, where do I fit in this? And the fact that we've got another new opportunity, a new role that's available for people to start thinking about, at least put it out on their, as a potential path for people that are, whose jobs are changing, that having a new role like this is great.
I hadn't even thought about that until you just said that, and it's like a perfect. The skill sets involved are very similar. A project manager versus what at least we envision a value stream architect, the skill sets that they need to have. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really interesting concept.
So yeah, I mean, a place like Nationwide, of course I left there a few weeks ago, but we were proposing this, and I used to talk about, the key roles here were. I actually wanted to call it the value stream owner and not the product owner, but and the value stream architect, and you need to empower them, and especially the owner, needs to have more control over. And we talked about this just in our talk. Prioritization, I called them the planks. Prioritization, funding, and then the architecture part, because the silos kind of act as gravity. And the hierarchy of the organization almost, instead of supporting the planks, will kind of like disrupt the planks. So it's hard to move to an organization, as Mick said, there's going to be lots of moving parts here, but you have to have those planks where you can actually control the funding, control the prioritization, and intentionally architect for speed, understanding you're always going to have bottlenecks, and then have the visibility and the data to turn that around. And as Mick said, you would think that would be obvious, but it really is not.
Did you just say plan the funding, have somebody in the value stream, or your funding by value stream?
Yeah, empowered to control it, because if you're still going to a model, like a project model, every change, you're really looking at the continuous improvement around this value stream, right? And you need money to fund that, and then you need money to do the prioritization across all the work between business value, risk, defects.
I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges, is how are CFOs and accounting teams going to adjust from the traditional budgeting process to funding by value stream?
Yes.
Slowly.
But you're not going to get there if at least you don't try.
Yeah.
Right? And what I found when I went to Nationwide from Bell Labs was a lot of our practices were optimized to meet financial needs. And now I think, as we went through the Nationwide story and journey, it became clear we have to optimize for the developer experience, right? And that means, and that's a hard cultural pill to swallow, even if Mick's going to prescribe it, because these companies are based on
Dr. Mick to you.
Dr. Mick, Dr. Honorable. because they were all optimized around finance. You know, at one point I was, after about 3 years, trying to get Agile working in a persistent way, came out of a meeting in the CFO's office. I remember talking to Joe Schlegel, who was my partner in crime at the time. It's like, what has happened to me, Joe? I used to be a technologist. Now I'm trying to sell a CFO about how we're going to do timesheets so this team can sit together and work in an Agile team.
But look, I have a little experience with this in my prior life before DevOps.com. But that's what happens as you move up management chain. You need to learn to talk the language of the CFO, the CEO, of the boardroom. In security, we run into this all the time. The CEO or CFO doesn't care about how many events per second your IDS
And they don't
is
care about
flagging.
story points either.
No.
Exactly. They just want to know, are we secure? What's my risk?
Right.
And what's it going to cost? So, to your point, Dominica, I think it's a little bit unrealistic to think that CFOs are going to change their language. These people, not that they're not smart enough, I'm not disparaging them, but they know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And I don't even know if they care to not know what they don't know, right? I think at some point there has to be a role for a translator, if you will, who takes that value stream know-how and translates it to business speak for the board
Well, or
the exec table,
I think the use of the word value stream sometimes is a confusing term.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the way the business thinks and the way the business runs is from the concept of product. Business thinks, if I go to my CFO and I say, this product is losing money, he understands what I mean by that. If I say this value stream is losing money, I'm going to get a pretty weird look at
Right.
that point. And so I think the business speak is still product. That's why we talk about moving from project to product. But a product has a value stream, right? A product has a value stream, the set of activities, and it can cross many teams in order to deliver that product. And so I think there is a language that can what's the word I'm looking for? Marry all of this, that
Right,
can
bring
do
it
the
together.
translation.
Well, there is, but I think the big problem is that that's not the language that's being used. The language of product is not the language
Right.
being used in enterprise
Yeah.
IT. It's the language of project.
Right.
Yep,
And the
exactly.
language of project, CFOs understand, and we have managerial accounting, and there's project accounting, right? And the problem is we're using the completely wrong language if we want to treat our
Yeah.
software efforts as a profit center, not as a cost center. We're using a cost center language, and this is where I think things are so broken in terms of what's happening in the DevOps community right now, which is everyone's realizing we need to, exactly as you said, Alan, basically level up the language to be meaningful in the boardroom, in the executive room. And that room is still using the wrong language.
Yes,
So
it is.
actually, the four of us have been collaborating a ton over the last over a year on coming up with a product-oriented language that can be brought to the executive room, but embodies the ways of DevOps with the flow, feedback, and continual learning. So,
I think that's a worthy goal and a great project to work on. I'll throw something else out at you guys that I'm interested in your thoughts is, when we talk about the value stream teams, or team, whatever you want to call it, value stream team, we ourselves are still hung up on the old vision of what a team is. I have a team working on a project. This is my project A team, project B team, C team, D team. And so we can't have a value stream team because it encompasses multiple teams. But I would say lose A, B, C, and D teams and say you're all part of my value stream team here working on a product versus a project. And maybe that is at the nitty-gritty of changing just flipping this whole thing on its head, right? Stop thinking of our teams. If we're still going to define our teams as project teams, don't talk to me about why we should be thinking in terms of product. I think it starts with making our project teams product teams. Make sense?
No, exactly. I think again, the business is not going to care if you're using Scrum teams or you've gone
They
with
don't
feature
care about
teams.
any of that.
They're
You're
not going
right.
to care. They're going to care about basically the velocity, the output of the teams dedicated to this product, the people dedicated to this product.
Yeah. So, a couple things then, because I want to try to tie this up before we can go home today, right? We want to move from projects to products, right? Number one. We need someone who kind of owns that value stream architect role.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to translate learnings, missions, goals, day-to-days of these value stream teams or value stream into business speak, if you will, for the exec team. What else are we missing?
So I think a big enabler that's going to come about, and my cohorts at Nationwide talked about this, Cindy Payne and Jim Grafmeyer, this concept of inner sourcing, right? So as Nicole says, it's a fairy tale to think you're going to have a two-pizza team do all the work of all the systems across the value stream, right? That's not where a big company is going to be, a non-unicorn. But you also, as Dominica points out, you're going to have dependencies that you need to make visible, but sometimes you can't mitigate those if you allow that team through a Git, GitHub, GitLabs, and pull requests, make the changes themselves and treat more of your systems as, I think you need to start looking at your portfolio and say, how many of these things in a priority order based on what value stream they impact can we make open sourceable? Right, inner sourceable, so that more people can make changes and mitigate those handoffs right now that have to go through demand, resource, capacity, planning, which are long wait states. And that's another cultural concept, because you have these ideas of, I'm an application owner, I own the integrity of this application, I'm going to get the phone calls if something happens, why would I let anybody else code on my application? We're going to have to prioritize and start small in large enterprises and open up those code bases for business through, controlled, like with these pull requests, to allow that to happen. I personally think that's where, one of the bottlenecks we're going to find out exists that you're going to have to mitigate through.
Dominica, Nicole, what do you think about that?
I think the idea of a two-pizza team, it just doesn't work when there's dependencies involved. And how often are there no dependencies? Maybe if there's a mobile team, they can be on their own. But we talk about, you've got a problem when the local pizza delivery company is delivering more than two pizzas to the same conference room, because there needs to be multiple teams in there figuring out all the dependencies. And so this notion that you have to keep teams small, maybe it doesn't work well. Maybe it's okay to expand the teams a bit so that we can reduce dependencies. Every dependency reduction cuts delay time in half.
I would just give you one exception to that rule, and that's my sons, because those boys will eat like a pizza by themselves. But anyway, Other than that, I agree. Nicole, I'm going to give you the final word.
I think there's one more piece to this that everyone needs to the pizza. Irrespective of team size, I'm in agreement with everything that's been said. The other thing that organizations really have to realize is that you have to be able to measure your value stream. And in order to measure your value stream, you have to actually, it's very interesting, but it's not trivial. You have to measure all the artifacts, the features, the defects, the risks, the debt that are flowing through your value stream. So that's the other core piece to this, that it will take time for organizations to be able to do that measuring. And you need to kick that off at the beginning, not after you've done all this architecting. You need to start the measuring. Because truth be told, I'll be honest with you, every organization has value streams today. Because a value stream is a set of activities used to perform work to deliver value. So you have it. It may be bad because it's in project land and you've got all this, but you have one. Measure it. Start measuring it. Get going on that as soon as possible. And in order to do that, you're going to have to connect your tools and have artifacts flowing through all of them.
Right. You know, Deming, one of the quotes I use is Deming says, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. It's not an accident. The question is, are you in control of your bottlenecks, or are your bottlenecks controlling you? And unfortunately, I think it's the latter, right? Because as Nicole and everyone said, we don't have the visibility, we don't know our dependencies, we haven't modeled it, we don't have the data. And so, you know, what is our true bottleneck? And, you know, it's there, but we got to find them, right?
And I should mention, Alan, that the four of us have been taking this really seriously. We have a lot of collaboration. Dominica put I think, a really important idea out there with making work visible. And we're now trying to scale that to these large organizations, these more complex value streams, into the shift from project to product. So I've tried to capture as much of that as I could, the great ideas and discussions we've had in this new book called Project to Product.
And when's that coming out?
At 5:30. No, the
It's
draft.
4:30 now, so.
In 1 hour. No, so it's actually shipping in the fall at Does Vegas.
Okay.
But there's a galley copy that I'm signing at 5:30. So I'll say
And you
one.
didn't bring one for me.
I don't have one.
Okay, we don't look for this video very soon. I'm only kidding. Congratulations, Rick. I know you worked hard on it. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. Nicole, Carmen, Dominica, Mick, Kersten, thank you for joining us. This is Alan Shimel for DevOps.com, DevOps TV at DevOps Enterprise Summit UK 2018. Thanks and have a great day.